It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. James Topin with the Prescott Valley Police Department. He's a detective there. And then Siri Michelle Middlefort with the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center. Welcome to studio.
Thank you.
This month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. James, I think you've been in here last few years now on this month in particular to talk about this issue that we still have in our country. Let's start out right away with what constitutes domestic violence. And let's clear that up first. Who wants to take that one?
Well, our unit is called the Family Violence Unit, so we deal with domestic violence situations, and for law enforcement purposes, domestic violence is defined as a relationship between married people, parents, siblings, or parents and children, siblings, grandparents, step-parents and step-grandparents, and adults who reside together, and same-sex marriages. That's the legal definition. So that covers a lot of ground.
Right.
It doesn't cover aunts and uncles and cousins, but if they live together, then if they live together on a permanent basis, then it does cover that. So that's, if in that context of those relationships, if that criteria is met, then if there's a whole host of crimes that can occur: assault, criminal damage, disorderly conduct, threats and intimidation, harassment, and if those happen and that relationship criteria is met, then the law kind of looks at that a little bit differently. So that's family violence, basically. But we also deal with stalking, which might not include people that have a relationship, just somebody who wants to have a relationship with somebody, and dating violence, and also sexual assault, too.
Do we have a problem with it?
Well, yeah, I think we do. I think, and we talked about this last week. We talk about this stuff a lot. We have a banner that we put out for our family violence unit when we do an event or something, and we share information with people. There's a banner that we put out there, and it says on there, domestic violence is a community problem. And
what does that mean?
Well, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, and I thought, when I was in the police academy, we had an instructor who said, a community will have as much crime as it is willing to tolerate. And I've often thought about that and wondered if that's true, or how true is that. And if it is true, then the question I think we have to ask ourselves is, how much family violence can we tolerate and still call ourselves a community? And is that even important anymore for people to think like that? So yeah, it is a problem, and it causes stress and pressure. And something I've even just recently started to really give a lot of thought to is the children involved who have to witness and live in these situations, and what kind of stress and pressure that puts on them, when they shouldn't have to worry about that.
Well, we talk about, you mentioned the children right there. I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like if you grow up seeing that in your life, there's a good chance that you're going to continue that trend as an adult. A child that sees that abuse all through their life, isn't it a huge possibility that they're going to wind up growing up and becoming just like that as well?
Statistically, it's said that boys that witness domestic violence among household members or parents are twice as likely to then abuse their partners as adults. So, yeah, it's one of the strongest correlations that we observe. It's why we talk about breaking this generational cycle, that children that do witness this are unfortunately, they're learning behaviors. So.
You mentioned event. You had Take Back the Night last week. You said a week ago Wednesday.
Yes.
How'd that turn out?
Really well. It was a combined effort of the Yavapai County Coordinated Community Response Team, CCRT. That's a domestic violence task force, basically. We have people from all over the county.
I think we have over 60 agencies participating in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, we've doubled in size in the last couple of years. And it's not just about meetings. Everybody gets tired of going to meetings, but we try to be active and do things and events and raise awareness. And we have a great group. I mean, people, almost all the police agencies are represented, but it's not just law enforcement. I mean, we certainly need to have a seat at the table, but we don't need to run the table, So there's people from Verde Valley and all across the county. And we work together to try to address these problems on some level, provide training for people, connect up resources, and there's networking that occurs. Kind of as a byproduct of having the meetings where people can now put names and faces together and share business cards and share phone numbers. So when I need to reach out to somebody, there's things I can do that Surrey can't do, and there's things she can do that I can't do. But together, we can do a heck of a lot if we know each other and have a communication, and we're talking about the same person that we're both dealing with. So we're trying to build those bridges and fill those gaps. Just this week
I've had conversations with people purely through having met them at the CCRT. A hospital staff member, I spoke directly with somebody at Adult Protective Services just about resource questions. Sometimes it's a matter of you have access to information and names of people that I can link people up with that I might not. And so that collaboration is really
it's helping.
Benefit. Yeah.
It's leading somewhere.
Helps people.
Right.
Ideally, yeah.
Right. And collaboration is the key. And so we have this event, and we have some guest speakers, and we invite the public. We honor and remember victims. Since 2010, in Yavapai County, there have been 21 homicide victims, people that were killed as a result of a domestic violence.
21?
Yes, in the last 5 years.
That is a big number.
Yeah, and in Prescott and Prescott
small
Valley.
Communities, it's
right,
not,
yeah.
In Prescott and Prescott Valley, and we oftentimes kind of combine those statistics, even though it's two different places, but we share the same dispatch center, so a lot of times it's convenient to kind of combine our numbers. We've had 55% of our homicides in the last 5 years in between Prescott and Prescott Valley have been domestic violence related. So
right there, it's a problem.
We honor and remember the victims, and then there's some survivors that get up there and talk about how they've broken out of the cycle. And what's really cool to me is some of these people that are cases that I've worked on with people that now they are the victims. Not only have they gone on and broken out of that, they've actually moved on now and they're helping other people. And that's really cool to see when that happens. So it was a great event. We had probably 200 people, 250 people, and we're going to do it next year, and I'm expecting it'll be even bigger next year.
How long have you been a police officer?
18 years total.
18 years. So for you, going back to your first year as a police officer, how have things with domestic violence, have they changed, gotten better, or worse, do you think?
I would say better in the sense that we take a more holistic approach to it rather than, like you and I were talking before, I was given some marching orders when I started and about how to handle these calls, and that's kind of evolved a little bit to where we still encourage officers to be pro-arrest, but also to think about beyond that, just getting people maybe plugged into some resources, and so that the problem, it's not just a kicking the can down the road type thing where we're actually trying to solve the problem for the people involved or help them to solve the problem, empower them to do what they can do. So in that sense, I think it's better. I think there's just more awareness and more education about it, but it's been going on forever, and it's unfortunately probably going to continue forever.
But we're doing what we can to try to remedy it. At least slow it down dramatically, I would think, right? We have to take our break already.
Okay.
All right. Prescott Valley Police Detective James Tobin and victims advocate for the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center, Surrey, Michelle Middlefort, in studio today. I'm Paul David, County-wide, back in just a couple minutes.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny. That's not a flower.
We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education. So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour to show them that higher education means a brighter future.
My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it. You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
Get caught buzzed driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom. It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzzed driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Countywide. Great to have you along with us today. Prescott Valley Police Detective James Tobin and victims advocate Suri Michelle Middlefort in studio. You're with the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center. We've talked quite extensively with James over the years about how it's difficult to get the victims to leave the household for various reasons. What are some of the reasons why a victim of domestic violence would not leave their household? Let's start with that.
Okay. It's really complicated, and everybody's situation is is somewhat different. Some of the patterns that we see are that when the question of violence always comes up. It's in the definition, but violence can look like a lot of different things, and it's not always physical violence. Physical violence isn't what constitutes domestic violence. It is a tool that is used by somebody who is
That's a good point.
an abuser. So sometimes violence isn't always present, but it can look like many different things. It can be anything that with the means and the goal of trying to maintain power and control over somebody. So that's really the end game, is to maintain power and control. Violence can be used. It's a tool. Emotional abuse can be used. Isolation can be used, getting somebody completely removed from their family, their friends, their social supports. Using children as a threat. Something will happen to the children. They will lose their children. Using financial and economic abuse. Completely removing somebody's resources so that good luck, walk out the door. You'll never have a dime. Where will you go? Where will you stay? And
that's really scary these days.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess not just these days, but anytime.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of factors that factor into why somebody has a really difficult time problem solving and finding a way out of that. And so one of the things that we always underestimate is that the person that's in this situation is their own best expert on what will work and what they need. So getting somebody to just basically find a safe place and knowing that there is help available so that they are the ones that can reach out and really try to figure out what is it that I need, who can help me find the resources that I need and help me strategize a safety plan. So that's one thing that we do a lot with victims of domestic violence and survivors, and sometimes even ongoing safety plans are really necessary for people who are continuing to be harassed or stalked, as we kind of talked about. That can be another tool of trying to control someone, intimidate someone. Sometimes just the threat of violence is more effective than actual violence itself. Because if you know that that person has the ability to harm you or the people that you love, right then and there, you're pretty much operating under somebody else's rules. They're not your own rules. So
what happens if a victim of domestic violence comes through your door and comes to see you? What's the process there? What happens? So
there are a couple of victim advocates, myself and then my coworker Carmen, that we meet with a lot of people just one-on-one, checking in to see where they're at, who's involved, what's going on, what do they have, who are their supports, what is working for them now and what isn't, and trying to strategize with them, kind of finding out where they're at, meeting someone where they're at is a big part of, you know, the sort of social work paradigm, and finding out where do they need help, where do they actually already have a lot of answers for themselves, but they need support, they need encouragement to trust themselves and listen to themselves after being told for years, possibly, or even longer, that, you know, that they don't have any knowledge, any value, any worth.
How do we get those people to walk away from that? That's got to be one of the hardest tricks right there, because you brought up all kinds of different reasons as to why they wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, and you know, a lot of people, we work with most of our cases that come through. We get a lot of call-ins and walk-ins, and anybody can call us and ask for help and resources. I mean, we support people with a lot of different situations, but most of our cases come through either the now Department of Child Safety, formerly CPS, and law enforcement. So usually we're working with people once something has already somewhat, you know, become exposed, for lack of a better word. Either somebody else has made a report and, you know, law enforcement has responded, or somebody is knowing. So there's kind of like a wedge in a door of saying somebody knows what's going on. It's not a secret anymore. How can we make sure that, you know, that you have what you need to make sure that this doesn't, that you don't have to be in this position for long or anymore.
So we have people that'll walk through the door and come and see you. James, what about when you respond to a domestic violence call and you've got a wife that's been beat up? We had a strangulation recently where she was strangled and choked to unconsciousness in front of the kids and just left there. When you respond to that, I guess you're the first person they're going to talk to about this crime that had happened to them. So what's kind of your course of action then, right there?
Well, and just recently, in the last couple of years, Arizona modified the law so that strangulation is now aggravated assault. It's a felony to impede somebody's airway or breathing. Used to just be a simple assault. So you've got all kinds of stuff going on. You need to get medical attention involved, involved, and get the person medical attention if that's what needs to happen. A lot of times people are reluctant, you know, to have fire or EMS come to their house. You know, it's embarrassing enough to have the police there already.
Right.
And then now you're going to have an ambulance and a fire truck.
How do you get them past that point, though? Make them feel comfortable with that?
You just try to, you know, it's a case-by-case thing. You try to deal with it. And, you know, ultimately, I mean, the cases are all similar, but all different and different circumstances and stuff. And some people have access to resources in their life already, and a lot of people don't. So we try to set them up with that if we can. But I think it's, you know, basically at the end of the day for us, it comes down to trying to hold offenders accountable, especially repeat violent offenders, and providing victims with services or access to services so that they can get a little bit more empowerment in their life. And that's basically all what these cases come down to. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes not.
All right, let's take our second break. When we come back, we can talk a little bit more about the resources that are available to maybe show that bit of hope that's out there, that if folks are going through this, they've got some place to go. So Countywide is going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
The next 30 seconds can save you a lot of money. Just do your laundry in cold and stick to full loads. Auto-sleep your computers. Plug your gadgets in a power strip and switch it off when you're done. Headed out? Turn back your thermostat by 10 degrees. And drive sensibly. The more energy you save, the more money you save. Find other great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Countywide. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're trying to get anybody who's a victim of domestic violence to just leave that household and get help and resources. We've said the word resources numerous times this morning in the last 20 minutes we've been talking. What kind of resources are out there? If I come see you, how are you going to be able to help me out in terms of resources? Because a lot of the times I would imagine these folks are running out the door, kid under each arm, and the clothes on their back. And I was looking at a website today, and they were looking for clothes, cell phones, toiletries, things like that. So outside of those donations, where would people make those donations to help those folks that are trying to escape this kind of relationship?
Sure. There are, even though we are, a small community in a fairly large county, there are some wonderful organizations that really do reach out to support families. And I know for a lot of individuals, they have spiritual supports through their church or other religious affiliation. For some people, that's not an option because that's where their whole family is, going. And so sometimes people really need more of an anonymous or, confidential place to go to get support. There is a national domestic violence hotline that people can call. But here in Yavapai County, Stepping Stones has been really at the forefront of providing services. They're really holistic. They look at getting resources for people. They do classes and, of course, also have safe housing and safe shelter for women and children. There are also a number of other shelters that support people when needed in a pinch, and Verde Valley Sanctuary over here on this side is a really amazing organization that supports a lot of people that I work with. So we're really fortunate to have both of those, and Yavapai Family Advocacy Center can help if people have specific, interests of where they'd like to help or volunteer or, provide, whether it's financial support or, donations of supplies and things. We can help facilitate that and get that going in the right direction.
So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, why stay in this? I can see myself as being somebody who would have a difficult time leaving that relationship and just, I've got my house, I've got my kids, we've got money, we've got food, we've got everything we need at this lifestyle. To leave all of that behind and then have to start all over again, it's got to be a pretty daunting thing for some folks. For most of them, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And one thing that we try to help really, I know that Detective Tobin and the Family Violence Unit has really been trying to help train people to be aware of the fact that separation is the most dangerous time for women. So just instructing somebody to leave is maybe not even always in that moment the best advice. That might be it's the highest, risk factor for lethality is separation, as well as, prior strangulation is also something that we know is a really, really high risk factor for future lethality in that relationship. So these are red flags that we see as providers and say, whoa, we want to make sure that this person is prepared, is ready, and is in a safe situation so that, let's say she doesn't have to go back to get, really important papers at the home that can then be used against her, or things that, we want to be sure that we're supporting somebody to make that decision that they are the best expert about themselves. So.
All right, we're out of time. Suri, so nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Go see her. She can help you out. James, great to see you again, too. That's today's Countywide. I'm Paul David. We will talk to you again next time.